Alright people, review of the week time. So, first off, I know you're going to probably ask, gee, the background's a bit different than the other videos. This looks like the normal background. Right, yeah. So, I said in one of my videos during the week that this move to London was not going well. I'm not going to elaborate fully on everything, but cut a long story short, basically those videos were done in the hotel room. I didn't plan on staying in a hotel when I came over there. I actually had an Airbnb for a month, to which it was going to be about getting proper accommodation thereafter. Problem: Airbnb, basically it made doing videos and working impossible because it didn't have something that it should have, which was actually advertised. And I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. So yeah, it was, amongst other things, some stuff happened back home that I actually needed to come home for, but I couldn't. But I'm home now, so it's not the end of the world. It's not been a good week, to say the least. But look, shit happens. YouTube, come at me. Yep, I dropped that word. But yeah, look, shit happens, and it's just a blip. It's just a little bump on the road. Everything will get sorted, I'm hoping, in the next couple of weeks. You do kind of have to laugh, don't you, when you think about it? That you go, a week ago I moved over, and a week later I'm moving back, and then in a couple of weeks I have to move over again. Yeah, you know, I always hear people and they say, oh, we moved from here to here and it was seamless. And I think, that's got to be so boring, huh? You want to do things my way, where everything goes wrong. But look, I'm not going to digress on that. I'm not going to dwell on it. I did enough of that last week. Believe you me, I did a flipping enough of that last week. We're back. We're going to do videos. And I did a couple last week and I thought they were, in the context of everything, they were reasonably okay. But we'll get plenty out this week. We will get plenty out this week. And I want to start with this. Do you know, I'm going to start with this, but I think this deserves a separate video, which I may actually do as well. Frank Warren has revealed that Moses Itauma is targeting Joseph Parker for his next fight. That's what he's talking about. He said, I really, really fancy that fight. This was in a TalkSport interview. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Itauma was mentioning Joe Joyce, Joe Parker, 2 years ago. 2 flipping years ago, they fought. 2 years later, there's talk of a prospect wanting to fight them. It's quite remarkable, really, how quick things like that turn around. And I can understand why Itauma wants to fight Joseph Parker. I can understand it. So, if you think of it like this, Joseph Parker at this minute in time is WBO interim champion. He's not the full champion, he's the interim champion. But being the interim champion is slightly better than being mandatory. And the reason why I say it's slightly better is pretty much getting the same deal, in a sense of you are essentially mandatory. You will get a title shot ordered. You will get, I think the purse split is, the same. I think it's the same anyway. But you have a certain benefit in as much as if the champion decides to vacate or he's stripped, you get elevated to full champion. So you don't have to fight an eliminator, you don't have to fight for a vacant title. Whereas if you are a mandatory, and let's say Alexander Usyk gets stripped, you won't get elevated to full champion. If you're just a mandatory, you'll have to fight the next available contender, which that sometimes could work out harder than the actual fight. So being an interim champion, you do get a little bit of a benefit in that sort of way. Now, if you were Moses Itauma, and to be honest with you, I like Joe Joyce better for Itauma than I do Joseph Parker, because Joe Joyce has slowed down a lot. He's so easy to hit. It's not even funny. It genuinely, it's crazy how easy he is to hit. I think that Itauma versus Joyce, that's a more winnable fight. And it's a fight that should give him a ranking, you would imagine, if he doesn't already have one. And I don't know, I just think that's just the better. And I think with Joyce, they'd offer him some good pay. And I think with Joyce, he'd be thinking, you know what, I need the money. Well, not that I need the money, but a big payday is nice. And he would fancy Itauma. He's got nothing to lose. He's nearly 40. So I'm sure they could probably tempt him. Parker, on the other hand, guaranteed world title shot. You've made good money your last 2 fights. They're going to have to really break the bank to get that fight to happen. Now, if he did fight Parker, stylistically, I don't know. I'd be picking Parker in that fight. Too experienced. He's kind of fiddled his way through his last few fights. I think that would be a bit too soon. I think Itauma is extremely talented, but I don't know. I think that as talented as he is, he's too raw right now for Joseph Parker. But let's say he beat Joseph Parker, then you're an interim champion. That's not the same as being world champion, so you couldn't turn around and say, oh, well, he's broke Mike Tyson's record. He wouldn't have. However, if Tyson Fury wins, if he beats Alexander Usyk, I reckon Frank Warren would say to Tyson Fury, vacate that title. In which case, and they probably do it like that, in which case then he's broke Mike Tyson's record. And if Alexander Usyk wins, I reckon Usyk might retire. But let's say he doesn't. I reckon Frank would lobby the WBO. If they don't strip Usyk, they'll certainly put the pressure on him. So, or maybe they will strip him. Who knows? Because Frank Warren has that good relationship with the WBO. But either way, I think that's Frank Warren and Itauma's logic, that we could win an interim title and then within the space of a couple of months, we could be elevated to full champion if it's done before May, in which case you break Mike Tyson's record. Now, a lot of people have said that they wouldn't be happy with that, you know, well, it's a vacant title, that we wouldn't really see that. I don't see why. You know, I've noticed it as well, with people saying that, you know, Itauma, you know, breaking Mike Tyson's record. Listen, I'm one of the biggest Michael Schumacher fans ever. I loved him growing up. Absolutely loved him. And I am not a particularly big fan of Lewis Hamilton. But I was quite happy to see, well, he didn't break Schumacher's record for world titles, but he broke his record for wins. And I've no doubt someone will break that. What is the point in having records if they're just unbreakable? What's the point having them? What's the point in trying to go for them? I love seeing that. And you know, people say, oh, well, you know, Mike Tyson beat Trevor Berbick to become heavyweight champion of the world. You do realise that. You know, you do realise it was Mike Tyson versus Trevor Berbick in 1986. Berbick is one of the weakest champions in history. I mean, Trevor Berbick lost a couple of rounds to Muhammad Ali in 1981. And actually, I think it was December 1981 was when Ali fought him. Ali was about 40. He already had Parkinson's. You're losing rounds to Muhammad Ali in 1981, going into 82, who already has Parkinson's at the time. Berbick was no good. It was it Bernardo Machado knocked out Berbick in a round back in the late 70s, early 80s. Berbick was no good. Certainly for a heavyweight champion, he wasn't that good. That's the guy Mike Tyson beat. So, you know, I mean, like, yes, Mike Tyson, great achievement, becoming youngest heavyweight champion against Trevor Berbick. If it was a prime Larry Holmes who had the WBC title, would they have put Mike Tyson in at the age of 20? Would Cus D'Amato have said, let's wait a little? Well, he was dead by then. Would they have waited a little bit longer? You know, what's the other guy's name? Jimmy Jacobs. And what's that other guy's name? Was it Bill Clancy or something? I think it was Bill Clancy who used to look after Tommy Morrison. And if you ever watched Tommy Morrison, he literally fought guys like James Tillis in the 90s. Now, Tillis, I'm going off on one here, but Tillis was past his best when he fought Tyson. Tyson wasn't even a champion at the time. And Morrison was matching him against guys like Tillis, Carl Truett Williams. Remember that fight? And it was that's the road he was bringing Morrison down, like literally Tyson 2.0. But I would like to see Itauma break that record. I think he can. The records are there to be broken. That might be the best way to do it. Would be to take the risk and go for Parker. If you win, see what way the Fury Usyk fight goes, and either lobby to get Usyk stripped or have Fury vacate. I think it deserves a separate video in of itself, but it's a very, very interesting one. It's an interesting one. Dalton Smith versus Joe Fernandez has been cancelled and won't take place on September 28th due to an injury to Smith. Now it says cancelled. Normally when it's a injury, you hear rescheduled. This is what they're reporting here on Twitter. Normally you say rescheduled, but it says cancelled. Won't take place due to an injury. I believe Johnny Fisher was going to be fighting on that card against Rudenko. So the card is apparently scrapped now. It's interesting again the way there's, because if you think about it like this, Jack Catterall was meant to fight Regis Prograis last weekend. He was meant to fight him yesterday actually, but Catterall got injured. Happens. Rescheduled till October. They're saying this is cancelled. That's interesting. I was looking on BoxRec today, and I was thinking, God, Eddie Hearn's UK shows this year. Never mind the shows in America, some of them have been pretty good. Never mind the Riyadh season shows. His shows in the UK this year, they've been so few and far between, which is crazy when you think about how many shows Eddie Hearn used to put on in the UK back in the day. He used to always have shows on, even if they weren't big shows. He always had shows on. He had that Next Gen show in February. He had Dalton Smith, I think, in March. We were meant to get the Taylor Catterall fight in April. We then got it in May. And I'm not counting the Saudi shows, by the way, the Riyadh shows, not counting them. We got Tyler Denny versus Cash in June. Then we had Babbage. That was the last UK show he did. 5 so far this year. That's crazy. And there's not really been a show where you've looked at like it as a whole and said there's more than one fight that's decent on that card. That's crazy when you think about it. Like the Zone Matchroom UK, I know Eddie Hearn has talked about being a global promoter, but if you think about it, Frank Warren is with the Saudis. He's signing American fighters. Wouldn't shock me if he starts doing a couple of shows abroad. You know, maybe in America, maybe smaller. So it wouldn't shock me. But you look at Warren's shows. Some of those York Hall shows have been pretty good. The Magnificent Seven shows. He's still doing some good, strong UK shows. It's really crazy when you think about it like that. And I might be missing maybe a Next Gen show here or there with Eddie Hearn, so I don't have his box rec in front of me, but I'm just thinking on top of my head. I can only really think of 5 shows. It's crazy when you think about it, isn't it? Joe Cordina has split from Tony Sims and now appointed Ben Davison and Barry Smith as his new coach ahead of his fight with Shakur Stevenson. Let's talk about his fight with Shakur Stevenson. So, Beterbiev versus Bivol, they were very tight-lipped about this undercard. They're very tight-lipped about a few things lately, the Saudi shows. But apparently, well, as I apparently, we have the actual show. I'd say apparently it's because the 5v5 got leaked, but we don't know if that's true per se. That's the reason why they're keeping it so tight-lipped. But they announced the undercard for the Bivol Beterbiev show. I'll go through very briefly. A guy called Muhammad Ali, because I'm not looking at it on BoxRec here, which would actually make a bit more sense. I actually probably should just go on the BoxRec one because I'm reading off a little page there, like just a fight poster, and it's a Google fight poster, so it's really far into this, and I'm just kind of looking like, what is that? Muhammad Ali is on there. Ben Whitaker versus Liam Cameron, Chapman versus Nicholson, Shakur Stevenson, Joe Cordina, Eubank Sarametem, Wardley Clark, and Jack Massey versus Jayat Bataya. I think I said the winner of Jack Massey versus Isaac Chamberlain wouldn't shock me if they fought Bataya. Called it. What can I say? Nostradamus up in here. But no, it's a decent card, I have to say. It's not a bad card. It's not a extravaganza, you know, mega show or anything like that. As I said, Beterbiev Bivol is such a good fight. Honestly, I don't really care for the undercard because I just want to see the main event. But if you want to talk about it from a consumer, I don't think it's a bad card. I think it is pay-per-view worthy, but it's definitely not as good as some of the other shows we've seen, 100%. I do kind of look at fans who would, you know, say things and, you know, comment on X and stuff like that and say, oh, this is a dreadful card. You're like, I'm sorry, what? Like, look at some of the pay-per-views Canelo does. Those undercards are nothing really. You're paying for the main event. You look at some of, I'll give you an example. You look at Joshua when he fought Usyk first time round. You'd Callum Smith, I think it was his debut at light heavyweight. You'd Campbell Hatton getting a crappy out of him by that Sonny Martinez guy. You'd have Coley with a nothing title defense. I can't remember the full undercard, but it wasn't great. And it wasn't great. It genuinely wasn't. There have been some pay-per-views that haven't been great. The undercard of Tyson Fury, Dylan White, Nick Ball versus Low IQ, that was alright. But other than that, I don't remember much about that undercard. You look at Fury versus Chisora 3. The only fight that was memorable was Dubois versus Lorena, and it wasn't meant to be memorable. It was meant to be just Dubois goes in and gets the job done. But they were not great undercards. This is better than all those. It is much better. I think that boxing fans have been so spoiled over the last last year really, that you're getting a really good card, like a really good card, and people are like, it's not that good. And you're like, well, in the context of what? Like, if you're comparing it to the Day of Reckoning, if you're comparing it to Joshua versus Ngannou, Usyk versus Fury, those cards as a whole, yeah, I'd say they're better, and you'd be right to say they're better because they are better. But if you're comparing it to pay-per-views of the last couple of years, it's much better. What I will say, BoxRec have the co-main listed as Jack Massey versus Jaya Pataya and Fabio Wardley, Fraser Clark below it. I wouldn't necessarily mind it if it was in that order, but I think Shakur Stevenson versus Joe Cordina is going to be the co-main, and don't like the fight. I think that Shakur might try and actually impress and get Cordina out of there. Cordina, Joe Cordina, and this is something I've said before about these Saudi shows that I don't like. And I don't like the way it seems only on the Saudi shows this happens. And I don't like it because I don't like it when, no matter who the fighter is, I don't like this. When a fighter's coming in off a loss and is instantly in a world title fight, I don't like that. I don't think that should be the way. Josh Warrington is fighting Anthony Kache. He has lost his last 2 fights. He lost his fight against Fernando Lopez, lost his world title in that fight, fought Lee Wood for a crack at his world title, which I didn't agree with because he was coming off the back of a loss. But he got that fight, lost that, and now he's moved up a weight. He's never fought at 130 and is fighting Kakache. Don't agree with that either. And I don't agree with Cordina being able to get an instant crack at Shakur Stevenson coming off a loss. I don't like that. It's WBC, they don't give a damn. But I just think that a fighter coming off the back of a loss, especially if it's a weight division below, it's like, you're not even fought at lightweight. Now, to be fair, Cordina has, but not for a while, I don't think. I think the last time he fought at lightweight was, I think he won a British title, didn't he? Yeah, he won the British title at lightweight, so it's been a while. But I hope Shakur Stevenson does something in that fight, because at the end of the day, you are trying to endear yourself to the Saudis in terms of your performance. And I think if you stink the joint out, Joseph Parker, there was a lot of talk from Frank Warren that it would be Parker Zhang too. And I said, well, if it's contractually obliged, fair enough. But it's going to be much fan interest in it. And I guess Turk Yalashik has looked and said, not really. So they're talking about doing Zhilei Zhang versus Bakoli. And you think about it like this: Joseph Parker, his last 2 performances haven't been showstoppers or anything like that. And even though he's beaten Zhilei Zhang and Deontay Wilder, it's pretty good form, to be fair, but we don't really hear much from him. We're not really hearing about fights up and coming. We're not really hearing about anything. We're hearing that Zhang could be fighting Bakoli and straight back in the bit. I mean, Zhang lost to Joseph Parker and he's straight in there with Deontay Wilder because he's the one making an effort in these fights. Parker's winning them, but he's just getting his way through the fights, not making it particularly entertaining. So I'm sure that Turk Al Sheikh will be looking for that. I just think this card, the one issue I have with it, well, 2 issues, and I talked about it already, the order the fight's happening, because the crowd could be absolutely dead for the main event if Shakur thinks the place out again. And I look at this card and I think 12 round decision, 12 round decision, 12 round decision, possibly 12 round decision, 10 round decision, 8-10 round decision. This card could start at 4 p.m. UK time, and it might not end until midnight or later. These Saudi shows, there's too big. The gaps are too big. They need to fix that. No one gives a crap about a singer, unless even Eminem. But who gives a damn about the live act before the main event? You get some. I mean, I don't really follow a lot of these kind of rap guys nowadays. I still do love rappers like Exhibit, Devlin, people like that. But I don't give a damn about some of these new guys. And then they have them rapping for 50 minutes before the main event. Don't care. The fans who are watching these shows, they want to see the fight. They do not give a damn about the entertainment. They want to see the main event. And when they prolong it and prolong it and prolong it, Francis Ngannou was on about that, how they were prolonging the ring walk time with Anthony Joshua. It just, you have to think about it like this. It's everyone involved. The fans are tired. Like me, when I do a watch along on that, I'm always saying, just get the main event going. We all want to finish up here so we can rest, because it's a long grind. Some people actually watch the whole card in its entirety. Credit to you. I don't know how you do it, but credit to you. Amazing. I mean, watch it live the whole way through. It's long. It shouldn't be a shift, like an 8-hour shift to watch a boxing card. You know, you have shows like Queensberry Matchroom, a pay-per-view show. It could start at 6 o'clock. They put the prelims on. Main event, everything is done by 11:30. It's done. 5.5 hours. These go on for 8 hours sometimes. That's more. Crazy. Card as a whole, not bad. Pretty decent, to be fair. Canelo Alvarez asked who angered him the most. Billy Joe Saunders, that something me off. That's why he got what he deserves. Some fighters talk to sell fights. I think he's a bad person, and I really enjoyed beating that guy. He broke his face. Canelo literally broke Billy Joe's face, and I'm going to say it ended his career. Not in the sense of the injury, but that's it. You know, Billy Joe was never coming back. He's never come back to boxing. He looks overweight still. He's in his mid-30s. He's not had a fight in 3 years. He's lived, God only knows what. I don't even want to know what he's been doing outside the ring. I don't even want to know. And there's no way he's ever going to come back. If he does come back, seriously, if Billy Joe Saunders comes back, he is going to have a job trying to get to 168. And he's not even a natural 168er, 168 pounder. I think it was a Dom Ingalls said, 154 he should have started at, then went to middleweight, as opposed to just starting at middleweight. But even at 168, he's not that big. 175, he's going to just be dwarfed. Could you imagine Billy Joe against even some of the guys like Benavidez? Even at 168, he would have been dwarfed. And he's going to look a shell of himself. I wouldn't even be shocked if Billy Joe, if he did come back, you put someone like Dan Aziz, no disrespect to him, but Dan Aziz would walk that fight. He'd walk it. He'd walk it with his eyes closed. That's how bad Billy Joe was going to be if he comes back. Now, Billy Joe is done, man. Done. Keyshawn Davis versus Gustavo Lemos is reportedly in talks for November the 8th. Man, Gustavo Lemos is a good fighter. A lot of people felt he won his last fight. Don't sleep on Gustavo Lemos. Very good fighter. Ashley Selby. Joshua versus Dubois is now reportedly a sellout. Turki Al Sheikh is confirmed. Alright. That's an interesting one. I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. It took a little bit longer than I initially would have envisioned, but there you go. What else do we have here? Fabio Wardley is... Oh yes, I'll talk about this. So, Fabio Wardley signed a multi-fight deal with Frank Warren and Queensberry, and so too has Shakur Stevenson with Matchroom. Now, I think that Eddie Hearn got the better fighter out of the two. Drawing power, like... I've said it once, I'll say it again, and I reiterate this. Most boxing fans don't give a damn about defensive fighting anymore. Floyd Mayweather was able to do it, and I think he's the exception rather than the rules. If you're having a 12-round snooze fest, and it's repeatedly happening, and fans are booing, in the US they will boo very early on. The UK, they'll give you a bit more leeway. But if you do that consistently and have those fights, you're not endearing yourself to the fans. And I don't care who your promoter is. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Devin Haney, what was it, 50,000 buys he did against Prograis? And then he says, like, boxing's lonely without him. It's like, mate, that is I wouldn't even want to know how much Eddie Hearn lost on that show with buy rates like that. You need a dance partner, otherwise people ain't buying. And Shakur Stevenson, I don't think, has ever done a pay-per-view. Could you imagine his buy rates? You know, that style, I think, it's very good for your career because, you know, you can have a prolonged career and very good, very untaxing for you and your health. But if you're trying to get in boxing, get rich, I mean, yeah, you can get rich, but I mean, your promoter is not going to be probably doing you too many favors after a couple of fights where he's taken L after L after L on shows, and then you wonder why. Oh, these fans ain't buying my pay-per-views. I wonder why. I wonder why someone doesn't want to stay and pay $80, because it'd be US dollars, to watch a 12-round points decision with minimal punches thrown. I wonder why a boxing fan wouldn't want to do that. Mystery, 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 mystery. In terms of Wardley, that's a decent signing for Frank Warren. I mean, at the end of the day, it makes the most sense to go there. It's where all the heavyweights are in the UK anyway, or the majority anyway. The overwhelming majority are with Frank Warren. Boxer Clark, Joshua and Fisher with Matchroom, and pretty much the remainder are with old man Warren at Queensbury. So yeah, for me, that's a bit of a no-brainer. Makes the most sense. Go Queensbury. There you go. You get paid, I would imagine, decently well to have this fight against Clark. You win it. More big fights. I think that's pretty much most of the news. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like I said at the start of this video, we had a stumbling block. A flipping big one. Flipping big stumbling block. But it's a stumbling block nonetheless. We can get over it. Take a little bit of time, but we'll get over it. And it's not going to stop anything. It's not derailed anything. You know, just a little, rest, recoup, and we're good to go again. So stick with us. Stick with me. In other good news, we're less than 50 subs off 20k. So there's always a good thing. There's always a bright side. So we'll hit 20k soon and onwards and upwards. I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button.